During 1914, something amazing happened on Christmas Eve.
We're going to read the story about the 1914 Christmas truce between the German and the British Army.
That's right.
One of the most amazing things that's ever happened in the history of war. On a crisp, clear morning 100 years ago, thousands of British, Belgian, and French soldiers put down their rifles, stepped out of their trenches, and spent Christmas mingling with their German enemies along the Western Front. In the 100 years since the event has never been seen as a kind of miracle, a rare moment of peace just a few months into the war that would eventually claim over 15 million lives. But what actually happened on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day 1914? And did they really play soccer on the battlefield? Pope Benedict, who took office that September, had originally called for a Christmas truce, an idea that was officially rejected. Yet it seemed the sheer misery of daily life in the cold, wet, dull trenches was enough to motivate troops and to initiate the truce on their own. Which means that it's hard to pin down exactly what happened. A huge range of different oral accounts, diary entries, and letters home from those who took part make it virtually impossible to speak of a typical Christmas truce as it took place across the Western Front. To this day, historians continue to disagree over the specifics. No one knows where it began or how it spread, or if by some curious festive magic it broke out simultaneously across the trenches. Nevertheless, some 2/3 of the troops, about 100,000 people, are believed to have participated in the legendary truce. Most accounts suggest the truce began with a carol singing from the trenches on Christmas Eve. A beautiful moonlight night, frost on the ground, white almost everywhere. As Private Albert Morin of the 2nd Queen's Regiment recalled in a document later rounded up by the New York Times, Graham Williams of the 5th London Rifle Brigade described in the event in greater detail. First the German would sing one of their carols, and then we would sing one of ours, until when we started up, "O Come All Ye Faithful," the Germans immediately joined in singing the same hymn to the Latin words Abades Fidelis. And I thought, well, this is really a most extraordinary thing. Two nations both singing the same carol in the middle of a war. The next morning, in some places, German soldiers emerged from their trenches, calling out Merry Christmas in English. Allied soldiers came out warily to greet them. In others, Germans held up signs reading, "You no shoot, we no shoot." Over the course of the day, troops exchanged gifts of cigarettes, food, buttons, and hats. The Christmas truce also allowed both sides to finally bury their dead comrades, whose bodies had lain for weeks in no man's land, the ground between opposing trenches. The phenomenon took different forms across the Western Front. One account mentions a British soldier having his hair cut by his pre-war German barber. Another talks of a pig roast. Several mention impromptu kickabouts with makeshift soccer balls, although, contrary to popular legend, it seems unlikely that there were any organized matches. The truce was widespread, but not universal. Evidence suggests that at many places firing continued, and in at least two, a truce was attempted, but soldiers attempting to fraternize were shot by the opposing forces. And of course, it was only ever a truce, not peace. Hostilities returned in some places later that day than in others. Not until New Year's Day, I remember the silence, the eerie sound of silence, one veteran from the 5th Battalion of the Black Watch, Alfred Anderson, later recalled in The Observer. It was a short peace in a terrible war. As the Great War resumed, it wreaked such destruction and devastation that soldiers became hardened to the brutality of the war. While there were occasional moments of peace throughout the rest of the World War I, they never again came on the scale of the Christmas truce in 1914. Yet for many at the time, the story of the Christmas truce was not an example of chivalry in the depths of war, but rather a tale of subversion, when the men on the ground decided they were not fighting the same war as their superiors. With no man's land sometimes spanning just 100 feet, enemy troops were so close that they could hear each other and even smell their cooking. The commander of the British Second Corps, General Sir Horace Smith Dorrien, believed this proximity posed the greatest danger to morale of the soldiers and told divisional commanders to explicitly prohibit any friendly interaction with the enemy. In a memo issued on December 5th, he warned that troops in trenches in close proximity to the enemy slide very easily, if permitted to do so, into a live and let live theory of life. Indeed, one British soldier, Murdoch M. Wood, speaking in 1930, said, "I then came to the conclusion that I have held very firmly ever since, that if we had been left to ourselves, there would never have been another shot fired." Adolf Hitler, then a corporal in the 16th Bavarian, saw it differently. "Such a thing should not happen in wartime," he is said to have remarked. "Have you no German sense of honor?" Still, a century later, the truce has been remembered as a testament to the power of hope and humanity in a truly dark hour of history. It has been immortalized and fictionalized in children's novels like Michael Forman's War Game, in films such as Joyeux Noel and What a Lovely War, and even in conversational Christian ad. This year, the Sainsbury, a British supermarket chain, to mark the centenary this year, Prince William unveiled a memory on December 12th, a metal frame representing a soccer ball with two hands clasped inside it. And a week later, inspired by the event of the truce, the British and German army soccer teams played a friendly match. And though the Christmas truce may have been one-off in the conflict, the fact that it remains so widely commemorated speaks to the fact that at its heart it symbolizes a very human desire for peace, no matter how fleeting.
It's difficult to imagine, isn't it?
Had you heard that story before?
Nope.
Yeah, interesting. I think the thing that really sticks out to me on that story is what the guy said. You know, if we hadn't been ordered to do this, if it would have been us making the decisions, we probably would have got along.
Yeah. Well, and you wonder what that would mean ultimately. Change history.
Interesting story. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.